I'll take you to the Volta region pretty shortly, where my colleague Maxwell Agbagba will be joining us from Keti South on the situation there, because we know that they've started exhuming bodies as well because of the tidal wave situation. We'll be hearing from the regional minister as well on the devastation that was being caused by the waves, amongst others. More than 1,000 people have been forced out of their homes due to flooding from the waves there. So this afternoon, we are live from Keta, where my colleague Maxwell Agbagba has been interacting with residents all day. He's been there for us. Maxwell Agbagba will join me shortly on the phone. Okay, thankfully, we have Maxwell Agbagba joining us from the Keti South municipality. Maxwell, you've been touring a number of areas in that municipality today. First off, paint a picture to us about the situation as you've witnessed it.
Well, it's devastation here in the Keti South municipality. A lot of households still reeling under the high tides that they experienced here in this community yesterday dawn. I'm told by residents that this happened sometime around 1 a.m. when they were all sleeping. Now, the worrying thing about this high tides, perennial high tides, is that a lot of essential social amenities here in this community are gradually being submerged under the deep blue sea right behind me. And very soon, I'll be showing you some evidence of that. In fact, the road that links to Keta here in this community has started experiencing some kind of deterioration because of the perennial tidal flooding of that particular stretch. Now, earlier in the day, when we came here, we were in Salakope, where we met a man who was digging a grave at the community's cemetery. He told us that part of the community cemetery is also gradually being submerged under the ocean. So what he's doing is that he's relocating some of the skulls of loved ones that they buried very close to the ocean. He tells me, though, that in previous years, the ocean was very far away from them. Where I'm standing currently, there were a lot of buildings here, but all of them submerged under this sand here, some of them in the ocean itself. Now, I'm currently at the Amuchinu community, and the community school here itself is also getting its fair share of the devastation being caused by the high tides here in this part of the country. Now, I just want to give you a sense of what the distance between the ocean, the deep blue sea right now, and the school building. Now, this is the school building. It's just about 20 meters away from the ocean. You can just reach the school. Previously, I'm told that previously there were a lot of structures here that separated this school from the ocean. But now, the students, when they are studying, the pupils, when they are studying, when they are in there, they can have a good view of the ocean. You've seen some of them there. Let's try and see if we can interact with some of them who were actually seated outside here studying. They've seen our cameras, so they are trying to enter. Hello, can we speak to you? Let's get closer and talk to them. So this is the Amuchinu MA Basic School. People who've been speaking to tell me that this school used to be far, far, far away from the ocean, but now it's under threats of being submerged under the sea. Let's speak to, hi, what's your name?
Right.
How far was the sea, was your school from the sea previously?
The sea, first time the sea, the distance between the sea is very far. By this time, the sea is closer to us. Sometimes the sea can even come here, then we can flow through this area, then sometimes disturb our knowledge. We can't even learn.
Oh, wait. So the ocean is causing a lot of distraction in terms of studies here.
Yes, sir.
So sometimes it enters your classrooms?
Sometimes it doesn't enter the classroom, but the way the sea comes closer to our classroom, yeah. Last time if it hit the wall, then it started driving or fetching the sounds away from here.
Okay. Okay. So how are you able to pay attention when you are in class? Because sometimes, we've been hearing the noise from the wave and all of that. How are you able to focus in class?
And we can't even focus to learn because the way the sea is coming to hit the wall.
It hits the wall?
Yeah, it hits the wall,
Okay.
and the sun is always disturbing us every day.
Okay, okay. Which form are you?
I'm Form 3.
Form 3, final year.
Yeah.
Look into the camera. What do you want to tell authorities to do? Because your school is now is gradually going to be under the water, under the sea. And this school, if you don't take time, it's going to be normal. What do you want to tell government?
Simple, but I'm in final year, but our juniors are here, so I mean the government must hurry up and defend the sea for us so that our juniors can also have a peace of mind to learn.
Okay, okay. What's your name?
My name is Swajere Bright.
Okay, wishing you all the best in your final exams, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so you had him, MFI, he talked about how the high tide sometimes hit the school building. Now you can see visible cracks already in this structure. I'm told that this building used to be quite taller, you know, and there was no way I was going to be able to reach the height of this school building. But now, because of the high tides and because the ocean is drawing closer, now it's very easy for me to even touch the ceiling here. And even these windows are coming down. I mean, let's speak to the assembly member for this area. He's also here. He's quite concerned about what is happening in this community. The only community school here is facing an imminent threat from the ocean. Sir, you're welcome to JoyNews.
Thank you.
I was asking him how far the school building was from the ocean, and he's telling me that it used to be very, very far. Can you paint a picture for us?
Indeed, for this year alone, the school building, the distance between the school building and then the ocean could be about 200 meters. That is the distance for just this year. But because of the tidal wave effect, it has really impacted and has drawn the sea closer to the building. As you can see, you realize that now it's less than 50 meters for this building to be washed away. Yeah. This school has been here for the past 30 years, and this is the only school that holds the two communities, Amutinu, Salakope, together. And this is where the school children attend school.
This is the only school for the two communities?
This is the only school for the two communities. And we are now facing an imminent threat because if the sea, nothing is done to protect the sea from getting closer to this building, it means that it will eventually take over the building and there will not be any school for the community. Now, as we speak, the impact of the tidal waves on the various houses has affected enrollment in the school. We used to have about 800 plus children attending this school. But because of the tidal waves, the impact of the distraction on livelihood, the children are unable to come to school. And so you realize now when you go to school, we have about 400 plus students at the school now. So our appeal to the President of the Republic of Ghana, as you can see now, you realize that the sea has naturally reclaimed the land. Yeah. If you were to be here yesterday, you would realize that the sea was even hitting the building.
Hitting the school building?
Hitting the school building. Whoa. Although it has reclaimed it naturally today, it's still not enough solution. We are pleading on the President of the Republic of Ghana, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, that this has become a national threat. I say it is a national threat basically because when nothing is done, like the sea defense project that was stalled, if nothing is done to extend it from here to Aflao, what will happen is that if the sea eventually takes over the main road that connects Aflao to Keta, it's going to trickle down to the lagoon side and eventually affect the main road that connects Aflao to Accra. Now, let me tell you this. Aflao border is one of the highest revenue generation points to the Republic of Ghana. And so if any activity that has to halt economic activity at the border, it means therefore that the nation is going to also lose. And so this is an emergency call that is impacting negatively on livelihood and on life.
So for the long-term solution, this is a perennial problem. We need a final solution to it. What do you think is the solution to this? Is it a sea defense?
The only solution to this perennial problem is the sea defense wall. That was started from Blekusu, Haveji Hovi, and it has stored at part of Agaveji. We need immediate extension of the sea defense wall from here to Aplao border. That is the only solution to this problem.
Well, we were talking earlier. Let's walk to the other side of this structure. And you were telling me that previously you had a lot of buildings here. Sure. Of course, we can see that building. The owner has left this building because of the high tides. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes, the coconut stump that you see there, it was in the middle of a building. Yes, it was in the middle of a building, and I think last 2 months, the sea washed those buildings away. Okay. So the people have left. They are perching with families. Others sleep by the roadside. Okay. Some are also perching in the chapels at Salakope. And so this is a heartbreaking situation at Amutinu Salakope as we speak.
Well, many times I was speaking to Jumado Kwesi Bedra, who is the chairman for the Voter MP caucus, and he was telling me that many times they've brought this to the attention of government, but it seems that nothing has been done about the situation. Do you have any hope that there will be a final solution to this? In fact, I want a camera technician to show this. Now, this is how desperate some of the people are getting to save their properties. Now, this is not a sea defense. No, it is not. This was done by the residents. This is a desperate attempt to save their property, their residential property. And this mirrors what many of the residents, are facing as it stands now. And this also mirrors the desperate situation for many of them and what they are doing to salvage their properties. I've been speaking to the Member of Parliament for Ketu South, Ablajifa Gomashi, and she has been talking about urgent government intervention. She says they need urgent government interventions to save this community, to save the roads, the schools, and other social amenities of this community. We can listen to her. Well, social amenities here in the Ketu South constituency, many of them under threat, some of them already submerged under the ocean. Now the Amutinu MA Basic School, which is right here, is also one of the critical infrastructure currently under threat as a result of the violent tidal waves that keep pounding this community dotted along the coast here in the Ketu South constituency. We're lucky to have with us the Member of Parliament for the area, Ablajifa Gomashi. She's here with us. We're going to interact with her and find out from her what the situation is like here in this constituency. Honorable, welcome to JoyNews.
Thank you very much.
Great. Now, we're standing very close to the Amutinu MA Basic School, and it looks like it is the next structure that is going to go. If there's no intervention, there's going to be the next structure that's going to go. There's no building that separates, this school from the roaring tidal waves now.
You are talking about 20 or so steps to the school. Yeah. If you say close is relative. True. But physically, about 20 steps we are in the school. Yeah. And that's how close the sea has come to the facility. Now, if you look at what it is, and we are not able to improve upon it, to lose it, the thought alone makes my heart just shudder. I cringe when I think about it, that this is all they have. And if the sea should take it away, imagine, not too long ago, I think it was in May, I did indicate, and I'm sure if you go into your archives, you'll find this, that the next time the sea strikes, it will take the road. We saw it only 3 days ago and 2 days ago. So I'm saying to His Excellency the President, you cannot say you have not heard me. Your Minister for Works and Housing came to the floor of Parliament and answered the question that I filed. He followed up with a visit to the community and made a promise that by the end of the year, we will see the continuation of the sea defense. So you must have heard about this. Why they are not here, I do not know. But I want to remind you, Your Excellency, that it costs more to do the road It will cost a lot more to give us another school. And it will cost a lot more to provide for shelter for the people who are traumatized by the pounding of these waves. It is in our interest as a country to respond now. We should not wait any longer. What's happening is that the land between the sea, the road, and the next community is not as wide as we think.
True.
So once it starts hitting the road, we are about to get into that community as well. It will merge with the lagoon, and we are in trouble. I don't know how else to say this.
There's a sea defense that is some distance away from where we are standing. I spoke to the MC earlier and was telling me that it looks like it is not even providing a solution for the people there, because the violent wave sometimes goes over, will go over the sea defense that they have there into some of the communities.
If we continue, it won't. So let me assure the MC that if we continue with the defense, it will not affect it anymore. It's because that is the end of it.
Yeah.
That is the end of it, and that's why it's happening.
Okay.
If we continue, it will have a lot of room to operate. So let's not say that it's going over. So what? So we should leave it alone. We should leave it alone. This is the only other entry point into Ketu South. If you don't use the Accra Aflao main road, then this is your alternative. So if there's no alternative, should anything happen on the main road, what are we going to do? I mean, look, from Aflao to Ho, that road can take you about 3 hours because it's that bad. So let's not find excuses not to continue. We must continue this intervention. We have to fix it. And Honorable Asenso came and assured us that it will be done. So I don't even want to entertain that thought that because the end of it is exposing the people to what is happening, then we should fold our arms and throw it up, our hands up in despair.
So for the school, for instance, Touchwood, if the school should collapse, what other options are available for the many children who school here?
How can I have an option when I'm already in trouble asking that the SHS building be completed? And I led the Committee of Education to Togbi Fiti, who added his voice that we must fix the school, complete the school, so the children can benefit from it. What is the alternative? I don't have an alternative. So I am terrified, and I probably will sound like a doom-monger, but it is the reality that when we lose this, then it means that there's nothing else. The borders have remained closed. That's where we get our source of livelihood. Now that it is not opened, the sea is our alternative. The sea is in battle with us. What is there?
So for the time being, for now, what kind of relief are we looking at giving to some of the people who are affected by what happened?
You know, the last time we brought relief here was when His Excellency President John Dramani Mahama and the members of parliament from the Volta region in the NDC came here and brought some rice and some cement. If we ask them now, they won't find a grain of that intervention we brought. What we need is for the people to have access to decent living and for them to fend for themselves. We just need to provide the opportunities for them. We are not a lazy people. I mean, look, I represent the people. Do I look like I'm a lazy woman?
No.
I'm not a lazy woman. We are not lazy. And I don't think that people want to sit down for others to be bringing them an olonka of corn and an olonka of rice and a bottle of oil. Let's fix the sea defense so they can fend for themselves. In the interim, it will be humane. It will be a sign of showing that we care about humanity, that we find a place for them to lay their heads. Over 1,000 people have been affected this time around. I think 1,030 thereabouts.
Colleague Maxwell Agbagba, they're interacting with the MP for Ketu South, Jifa Abla Gomashi. I'll be going back to my colleague shortly for more on this, because we've been interacting with the regional minister, also the MC. Earlier, you heard him interact with the assembly member and some students as well. Let me take you to the Works and Housing Ministry, where the minister, Francis Asenso Boakye, has been addressing the media on this particular situation.
I thought we should all come here so that I make a short statement. So if you are ready, let me know, then we go ahead. Are you ready? Ladies and gentlemen of the press, good afternoon. I welcome you all to this very important press briefing this afternoon. I must thank you for accepting to be here under very short notice. As you are all aware, over the weekend, the people of K2 South Municipality of the Volta region were unfortunately displaced when tidal waves from the sea swept through their homes and destroyed properties. First and foremost, I wish to sincerely empathize with our people whose properties worth a fortune have been ravaged following this unfortunate incident. I must reiterate that government acknowledges the urgent need to permanently address the devastating effect of tidal waves in the affected towns of Agavaji, Salakope, and Amichuni communities in the K2 South constituency, and indeed the rest of other communities that are experiencing similar challenges along the coastal stretch. These communities are on the same coastal stretch as Blekuso, also in K2 South constituency. This coastal stretch is characterized by narrow beaches, and effects of tidal waves along the coastal stretch can be very devastating and consequently result in beach erosion, loss of land, property, and sometimes extensive flooding in the event of wave overstopping. The erosion of the beaches also impacts negatively on fishing, which is the main source of livelihood of the communities along that coastal stretch. As part of measures to curb these devastating incidents in these towns, in July 2015, the Ministry of Works and Housing engaged Measures Amandi Holding Limited to design and construct coastal protection works along this stretch, starting from Blekuso and working towards Agavaji, Salakope, and Amichunu under the Blekuso Coastal Protection Project. The project, which protects 4.3 kilometers of coastal stretch, had the first phase completed in July 2019 and has since functioned effectively, protecting lives, livelihoods, properties, whilst reviving fishing activities. Ladies and gentlemen, the Ministry of Works and Housing knows the sense of urgency for undertaking the second phase of the project to protect Adina, Agavaji, Salakope, and Amichuni communities and others to the east of Blekuso. To this end, the ministry has commenced urgent steps to implement the second phase of the project. The ministry has finalized the evaluation of the relevant proposals to start works under the second phase of the project. It is important to note that in April 2021, a technical team from the Hydrological Services Department of the ministry, upon my directive, traveled to the affected communities to engage the municipal chief executive and some community leaders on the matter of the implementation of the second phase. I also had the opportunity to lead a technical team to visit those communities to have a first-hand understanding of the matter and the situation on ground. It is envisaged that the completion of the works envisaged under the second phase of the project will cover a minimum coastal stretch of 8,000 meters, that is 8 kilometers, and this will surely ensure the total protection of the people of Agavaji, Salakope, Amuchuni, Adina communities and other affected communities within the constituency that continue to bear the brunt of these occasional disasters. The scope of works under the second phase of Blekuso Coastal Protection Project entails the construction of 37 armor rock drawings with land reclamation to protect 8 kilometers of coastal stretch. The ministry is currently actively working with the Ministry of Finance to raise the needed funding for the implementation of the second phase. It is important to note that value addition is critical in ensuring that a platform for recouping the capital investment is provided. Thus, in addition to protecting lives and properties, the works under the Blekuso Coastal Protection Project will protect the beaches and its environs against encroachment by the sea, address the current environmental deterioration, mitigate the social and economic consequences of beach erosion, and strengthen the economic and production base of the area through enhanced fishing and recreational activities. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, while government makes all the necessary effort to avert these unfortunate perennial occurrences, I wish to appeal to our coastal residents to avoid any practices that expose them to vagaries of the rising sea levels. There have been reported cases of sand winning, uprooting of mangrove along the coastal stretch. The investment by government cannot yield the needed protection if people continue to engage in such practices. Thank you very much, my friends for the media, and God bless us all. Then this is a very short statement. The project started and it was completed in 2019, and we've been working towards the start of the implementation of the second phase. I did mention that we've been actively engaging the finance ministry to start the second phase. I am very hopeful that the finance minister will touch on it in his upcoming presentation of the financial statement for 2022. I'm very hopeful about it.
In the meantime, as they continue to bear the brunt of what has happened, is there a stopgap measure, anything to alleviate the plight of the people?
That is the work of the NADMO. And in fact, the last time such an incident happened, we worked with them to provide some relief items to them. We are currently engaging NADMO to do same. Yeah.
Well, are we done? Okay, so thank you so much.
I'm more touch money there. Make us a nyadia a share. The Ghana has share, you know.
That's the Minister of Works and Housing, Francis Aston Subwache, there at a press conference a while ago on the tidal wave situation in the Ketu South municipality. So among others, government understands the urgency with which this work ought to be done. It talked about empathizing with the residents of Blekuso, also Salakope and Amuchino, also and then raised concerns about the first phase of the project, which was completed in July 2015. He says that's the Coastal Protection Project. That's when they actually awarded that contract. And then the first phase was actually completed in 2019. He says that's a 4.3 kilometer stretch of a coastal line. That's the work that they did back then. And then also the second phase is yet to take off. They are hoping that it will take off after they get the needed funds from the finance ministry, and he's hopeful, even though did not mention how much exactly is needed, he's hopeful that the 2022 budget statement that will be presented by the finance minister Ken Ofori-Atta on Monday, 15th November, I beg your pardon, there will be some mention of this tidal wave situation and how much exactly will be awarded to it, but we are yet to know how much is needed for the second phase to take off, and that will be an 8 6-kilometer stretch, and that will be also from the Blekusu area on this particular project. He also admonished those who live in those areas to avoid issues that will endanger the environment, like sun winning and uprooting of mangroves, amongst others he mentioned. So we're still watching that, and I'll take you shortly to my colleague Maxwell Agbagba. But the Volta Regional Minister, Dr. Archibald Lecha, has been speaking to me a while ago on plans to support these victims.
With the Minister Chief Executive of Ketu South, I'm also in touch with the MP for Ketu South. The Keta MC and Agmorogan DC have been in touch with me. As I speak to you right now, we have NADMO officials on the ground doing their normal assessment, and the report is expected in a moment from now. And then I'm also in touch with the Minister for Works and Housing. I'm also talking with the NADMO, the Coastal Development Authority, and we schedule meetings this afternoon to look at the report that is coming from the ground, and then we take the appropriate decisions as to what we're going to do in the immediate term, short term, medium term. These are things that we're working towards already, but with what happened over the weekend, we need to speed up and get to the affected communities and address their immediate concerns whilst we decide on what to do in the medium term.
The Volta Regional Minister, Dr. Archibald Lecha. Let me take you back to the area. My colleague Maxwell Agbagba has been interacting, like I said, with the MC. We also heard him interact with the MP for the area as well as the assembly members. But Maxwell, let's talk about how residents are actually coping. We've heard what ought to be done, the continuation of the Sea Defense Project. The Works and Housing Ministry have also been speaking to it. But let's talk about the residents, those affected. What's their situation? Hello, Maxwell. Okay, so we'll get to my colleague Maxwell Agbagba shortly on the situation in the Ketu South municipality. Let's try again. Maxwell, if you can hear me, I'm asking about the state of residents themselves. What is their situation as we speak? Hello, Maxwell. My colleague Maxwell Agbagba, of course, I hope the tidal waves have not taken over his equipment though, but he can hear me now. Maxwell, can you hear me? So bring us up to speed on the situation of these residents that you've been interacting with.
Sorry, come again, Mafa.
I'm asking about the state of residents that you've been interacting with. What's their situation as we speak?
Well, many of them slept in a community church some meters away from where I'm standing. They started returning when a tidal flooding receded this morning. So what they came to do essentially was to salvage some of their personal effects. When we visited many of the homes, we saw clothes outside, we saw furniture outside, we saw books outside. Many of the residents praying that the sun will continue to shine here in the Ketu South municipality to dry some of the personal things that are, wet by the water, the seawater that got into their rooms yesterday. But they tell me that because of the situation at their various homes, they will not be able to sleep there this evening. And indeed, we're going to be here with them today to monitor the situation, to check to see what it's going to be like later in the evening. Some of the women I spoke to told me that they would go and sleep. They would have to go and sleep at the residences of their friends and loved ones. Some of them told me that they would have to return to the community church where they slept yesterday. So though the sun is out, we are experiencing what looks more like a low tide compared to what happened yesterday. Many of the residents are still scared, but the situation can change any moment. They say usually it happens at dawn when they are all asleep. And what happened Sunday dawn happened sometime around 1 a.m. when they were sleeping in their rooms.
Notice, Maxwell, how blue the sea behind you is. I'm sure there's some hope there then. About the color of the sea, you rarely see that in any part of the country.
That's true. That's quite shocking, though. I mean, very blue, just like the skies. The deep blue sea. I'm quite surprised by what I'm seeing. I mean, the beach also look quite clean comparatively to what I've seen, in Accra. So all in all, it looks good. It looks good for a place to relaxation and all of that. But when the tides get high, then it becomes a nuisance to many of the residents here.
But it's interesting, in your earlier reports, Maxwell, I heard the fact that the sea has met with the lagoon because the people are living in the middle, where the lagoon is on one side and the sea is also on the other side. Paint that picture to us. You rarely see the sea meeting the lagoon. What have they been telling you about this?
Well, that is true. The residents actually told me that when they came to live here, the lagoon was already there. The ocean was also already there. But what seemed to be getting closer to this Salakope and Amuchinu communities is the ocean. And of course, we know the activities. We know how climate change is impacting some of these strange happenings that we are seeing. So an old man who I spoke to told me that 30 years ago, yes, they experienced high tides, but not as high as they saw yesterday. Some of the flood markings were so high, sometimes some of them up to the window level of some of the people here. So it tells you that indeed climate change is also having an impact here. So previously, they even forget that they live closer, or they live right in the middle of the ocean and then the lagoon. But now, because due to the activities of climate change, the sea is gradually getting closer to this community, already submerged, some parts of it already submerged under the ocean. And now what is left for them is a constant reminder that their community can be submerged underwater anytime, any day.
Well, but though, just before I let you off, Maxwell, would you say that the flood waters have receded so far? Because earlier, from the pictures that you sent in, we saw that even the roads had been submerged. Is the situation any different now?
Exactly. The tidal flooding has receded completely. We do not see the water in rooms any longer. What is left now is an attempt to salvage some of the things that they left in their rooms whilst the high tide happened. Many of them had to leave without packing anything. But today, they are back and they are able to walk on dry land to get to their rooms to salvage the rest of the things that they left behind. So yes, we can see dry land today, and the people here tell me that they are very lucky because the sun is out in its full glory, because yesterday, after they experienced the high tides here, it threatened to rain. It actually drizzled at some point, and some people thought that their woes were going to be aggravated by the rains. That would be more of a sunny day flooding and then a proper rainy day flooding. But thankfully, that did not happen yesterday, and we've seen some kind of dry land, and the tide seemed a bit low today. The residents here are praying that it will continue to be like this until they get a sea defense, which they say is the ultimate solution to the perennial flooding here, MFR.
Well, Maxwell, let me leave you to take a swim in the sea right behind you, and do take care of yourself. That's my colleague, Maxwell Agbagba, who will be with him all through, and will be bringing us reports from the Ketu South municipality, the Keta area to be specific. We've been reporting on the Salakope Amuchinu area, and there's the tidal wave situation there. But you can only get beautiful scenes like that from the Volta region. Visit Volta and, of course, you experience Ghana. This is the Pulse here on the Joy News channel. Still to come, quest by police to arrest Medina MP Francis Xavier Susu suffers major setback as the MP is said to have travelled out of the country for parliamentary business. We have the details. As his constituents say, the state should drop the case against the legislator. Do stay with us. You're right back on the Pulse. Welcome back and many thanks for your company. The quest by the police service to arrest Medina MP Francis Xavier Susu will not materialize anytime soon. This is because the MP is on parliamentary duties outside the country. Mr. Susu, we know, has been accused of destroying public property during a street protest and is being charged accordingly. He was expected to show up in court today, but that did not happen. Correspondent Joseph Akable monitored proceedings and tells us why.
Private legal practitioner Victor Adaudu explaining proceedings to some residents of Medina who pitched camp at the Kaneshie District Court to support the legislator. Police prosecutor ASP Sylvester Asari told the court the MP was out of the country for parliamentary business. He explained the Speaker of Parliament had written to communicate this to the police. The case was therefore adjourned to November 16. The residents want the state to drop the case against the MP.
For the Speaker, once he's on parliamentary duty, there's nothing that they can do. But they have the information that hopefully by next week he'll be touching down. Somewhere Tuesday on the 16th of November, he'll be touching down. So they've adjourned the case to 16th of November, which is next coming week. And they are only hoping by that time he will be in. If he's not in, he is still on the parliamentary duty. And there's nothing that can be done about that.
I mean, this issue has been playing out in the media space for a while. I mean, as members of the constituency, how do you generally feel about all that has been happening? I'm sure you took part in that demonstration that was just basically about poor roads in your area.
First and foremost, again, let me say we're grateful to Almighty God. If the demonstration that we embarked, the good residents of Medina, taking it Aimensa, Kweman, Danfa, Adotema, Otinibi, and then getting to Amaya. As I speak to you, the demonstration that we embarked with the support of our MP, Honorable Lawyer Susu, has yielded some positive results. As of last week, Tuesday, the contractor has moved to site. And as I speak to you now, right from here, when you move to the site, you will see or notice that the contractor is on the road and is grading the entire road. So, in the first place, you let the citizens of the Republic to understand that out of the demonstration that we embarked, there is a resource, there is a testimony.
Ghana President,
the president should leave our father alone. We adore him. He has not committed any crime. Everyone demonstrates. It happened during the John Mahama era. If you ask for roads in Parliament and they are not fixed, you can demonstrate.
So also obaso na so akwanya na kana se parliament ko kana so obi anfiwa ewo mra ewo kwan se okoye.
That's Court correspondent Joseph Akable's report. Now, the Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa, AGRA, is calling for urgent actions to help stem the impacts of climate change, warning the phenomenon is reducing crop yields and creating severe food insecurity situations on the continent. Anthony Ngozi, who is acting West Africa regional head of AGRA, observes since the turn of the century, there's been a 30% increase in the frequency and duration of drought events. That's negatively impacting agriculture. World leaders are gathering in Glasgow for the 26th United Nations Climate Change Conference, where they are expected to make commitments to help stem the phenomenon. Mr. Ngozi wants higher temperatures are to be expected to decrease crop yields and increase pest and disease spread to new areas. He joins us via Zoom with more on this. Mr. Ngozi, we're grateful for your time here on the Pulse. So we know that Africa contributes about, 4% of total emissions that are responsible for climate change. But really, there are those who are still skeptics. How is climate change negatively impacting the lives of Africans, you would say?
Good afternoon, Aisha, and thank you very much for having me on the program. Yes, indeed, climate change is affecting African lives negatively and significantly. we have been witnessing more extreme weather patterns recently. We saw in Mozambique, Zimbabwe, and Malawi, where we witnessed the most devastating tropical cyclone in 2019 that displaced about 2.6 million people and left over 1,000 people dead. And recently, even here in Ghana, just last month, we saw in northern region, northeast and upper west regions, there were severe floods that damaged bridges, that damaged roads, and left, the district, difficult to access. And NADMO reported that 700 farms were damaged during those floods. So we're really seeing a lot of that impacting African lives. On the health-wise, we are also seeing that there is a very big impact on the disease burden. We are seeing that 93% of the deaths, global deaths in malaria, are in Africa. And rainfall, after very heavy rainfall, that's where we witness most of the malaria epidemics. So that is really affecting a lot. And in terms of food security, we have also seen that there's been an increase in the drought-prone areas. The increase of the people that are undernourished has been increasing substantially by about 46% since 2012. And climate change could pull that number to maybe another 100 million more people becoming extremely poor by the end of 2029.
Well, you've been talking about the impact. Well, just recently, 3 days ago or so, here in Ghana, we've just seen the tidal wave situation in the Ketu South municipality. We've been talking about it. It dominated news discussions all through. But there are those who still think, like I'm saying, that climate change is far away from us, the impact we cannot feel. But let's narrow it down specifically to smallholder farmers. What would you say will be the impact on them directly?
Yes, Aisha, smallholder farmers are very reliant on very steady rainfall pattern and good rain. And now with higher temperatures, we can expect more disease outbreaks, and we can expect that there's going to be a drop in the productivity of most farmers. We are seeing that with a drop in crop yields expected in West Africa of about 3%, that is also going to affect the availability of animal feed. So that will make life very difficult for farmers to even feed their livestock. And already, when we talk about post-harvest losses, we see that when the temperature rises, it's going to destroy even more perishable goods quickly.
Well, then it brings me to the issue about what we can all do to, mitigate the impact of climate change, especially on these smallholder farmers, knowing that it would lead to severe food insecurity.
Yes, there is quite a lot that can be done. And here at AGRA, we've, for example, been promoting disease-resistant seed varieties that can help the farmers in terms of climate change. There's also varieties that are drought resistant, disease tolerant, and we've been also trying to promote insurance to help them cope in times of need. And then we've also been working with the government to build their capacity in monitoring food availability around the country here in Ghana. Recently, I think 2 years ago, we partnered with forestry to replant about 160,000 trees in Ghana. So those are some of the things that we can do.
And many thanks for your company, and we'll continue to do our part as individuals to ensure that we can mitigate the impact of climate change. This is the Pulse. Let me take you to Konongo now, where the district court there has remanded 5 students arrested in connection with the killing of a student, of course, into police custody. Our correspondent, Erastus Asaridonko, reports the case was heard in camera because the suspects are juveniles. The court, presided by Her Worship Joyce Bamfo, denied a bail request by counsel for the first accused, whilst granting police submission for time to conclude investigations. They are expected to return to court on the 15th of this month on a provisional charge of murder and abetment of crime. My colleague Erastus Asaridonko was in court. Here's his report.
The sober-looking suspects were ushered into the court through the back door. They were handcuffed, walking slowly and looking down all the way. The case was held in camera.
We were told initially by the divisional police commander that we were not supposed to film anything concerning what happens outside the court, even just to protect the identities of these suspects. Now, the hearing lasted for about 35 minutes.
Lawyer for the main suspect and first accused person, Richard Edudako, briefed the media.
They have been charged with the offense of murder. And as the Constitution stipulates, it's quite unfortunate that children at this stage will commit such a heinous crime. But it is an alleged offense until it's proven by the court of competent jurisdiction. At this moment, we prayed for bail for them, but the court refused the bail application on grounds that they are still assisting in investigations. But having regard for the Juvenile Justice Act, they are supposed to appear before the court in a week's time. So a week from today, they are coming to court on the 15th. Then the court will continue with their processes. The court has referred the matter to the Supervising High Court in Kumasi to ensure that the right processes are followed because of their ages. 2 of them are 16 years and other 3 are 17. So they will not go through the normal process that anybody like an adult will go through. So you realize that the court even closed its doors to everybody, including even those users of the court, for them to stay out. So they cannot go through the normal process just like any other person because they are very young.
The Konongo police say they've increased investigators on the case to fast-track prosecution. Chief Superintendent Shaibu Abubakar Sadiq is Konongo Divisional Police Commander.
We have within 6 months per the Juvenile Justice Act to finish trial. For that reason, we have put up investigation team because you don't want one person to do the investigation then slow down proceedings. So the command has added 2 other investigators, chief inspector and 1 inspector, to the original investigator to ensure that we are within the time frame.
Reporting for JoyNews, Erastus Asaridonko, Kumasi.
Well, have you been concerned about the annual wrangle between law students and the General Legal Counsel over space to study? How about an opportunity to study from a location away from the classroom? As our population grows and class sizes get smaller, the need for distance education has become more crucial than ever. Well, with COVID-19 in the mix, it's even more important to study via distance. We all call it distance learning. In Ghana, there is an institution responsible for designing distance learning programs. I bet you didn't know that. That institution is the Center for National Distance Learning and Open Schooling. We call them CENDLOS. They're about to tell us about fresh plans to expand distance learning programs and get them to your doorstep. In the studio with me today, I'm pretty much excited about that, Nana Edujemfi Ejabwo, Executive Director for CENDLOS. Welcome to the Pulse.
Thank you.
I'm sure most people didn't know that there's an institution responsible for distance learning.
Yes.
How long have we been in existence?
Okay, thank you for having me, and greetings to the viewers, and greetings to my minister, Dr. Yaosei Duchum. Yes, CENDLOS has been in existence since 2002, The name was President's Special Initiatives.
Okay.
And since then, St. Louis has been operating from that time till now. And we are mandated to regulate, package, advise, anything distance learning and open schooling. The name St. Louis is Center for National Distance Learning and Open Schooling.
Open schooling.
So that is where we are mandated to regulate, package, advise, anything online education, and also to infuse ICT in our current curriculum. That is what we do at St. Louis.
Okay, that's very, very interesting since 2002. But let's talk about the situation as we have it now when it comes to distance learning and open schooling. Because until COVID, we haven't really paid so much attention to it. Right. What would you say is the status of it as a country?
When you look at COVID, nobody expected it to come. Nobody's here with us, and when you look at in our educational system, I know COVID has affected us. There's a learning loss, and we need to reimagine education, especially with the pandemic around, and much falls on St. Louis, what we do. So we need to focus on ICT to leverage the learning loss. And to do that, we have to fall on appropriate ICT solutions. That is what we are doing now. And in 2016, St. Louis came about with what we call the iBox. And the iBox is an intelligent device, intelligent box. Okay. And in there it has contents and other courses in there. So once we deploy one iBox, let's say we put it in a school, it works within 100 meters radius. So students should have access to the educational content in there. And it's helping in most of the schools because of what we have deployed.
It sounds like it's for the privileged schools. A school like one in Blekusu, for instance, how accessible is this iBox and all of that to them? I don't know if St. Louis is paying attention to these underprivileged schools, or it's just the privileged schools.
That's a good question. The iBox is an offline learning solution. And when we say something is offline, it means it does not use anything connectivity, it does not fall on data. So we can take an iBox to the remotest part of the country and they will also use it. The iBox is being used everywhere in the country. Right now, we have 245 schools that are being used the iBox now. If you don't have connectivity, you still can use the iBox. All we have to do is to give you the training, and the selection is done by GES based on low-performing schools and other stuff. Then we'll go and do the installation. So it's not for the schools in the urban centers. It's for everyone. Just like the president always preaches about equity in education, which my minister also talks about that. So the iBox will fix that problem because we don't know who is using it. So equity in education can be achieved with the iBox and technology as a whole.
Okay, so we talked about distance learning gaining a lot of prominence, or should I say virtual learning, gaining a lot of prominence with the onset of COVID, yes. For instance. Now that at least we are witnessing a stability of a sort, are we still giving it the same attention that we used to give it when children had to stay at home and learn?
That's another good question. When it comes to distance learning, it started way back in 1773 by Sir Isaac Pitman in the U.S. in Boston. And apparently he did not know that distance learning would travel this far. The first distance learning was deployed in the newspapers. And I think the materials came in the newspapers in Boston. So those times students will register for anything distance classes, and they have to pick their materials from the schools and other stuff. And fast forward in 1843, the first distance education came to being in the same place in the U.S. A lot of actors positioned it and pushed that distance learning. Actors like Anna Tuckman, they all did that. We fast forward, it's here in Ghana now, distance learning. But when it comes to distance learning, in Ghana, there's a little bit disparity. People see distance learning as education that, okay, you go 2 days in a week, maybe you go on weekends. But what we see most of the time outside is Distance learning is you and the teachers, students and teachers are in a different place altogether. The geographical location is different. So that is distance learning.
But people don't take that seriously. It's like you're not part of the school. You are just, just doing it. People really feel that's not the serious education.
That is why St. Louis is here, to give us that credence and awareness, mandated by the laws and the president for us to do that. Because right now COVID-19 is here with us and everything has to be done remotely, and technology is also here. So we are looking to create that awareness for people to understand distance learning, that if you acquire your degree online versus on ground is the same. There's no disparity above that. If astronauts, they can train how to go to space using simulated courses on ground, it means a lot can be done on the computer and other stuff.
So it's okay to get do the whole 4-year course on the computer, sitting behind the computer and doing it, and not being worried about ever meeting your teacher, and your degree is as valid as whoever was in the lecture hall.
Very valid. And think about it, that creates some sort of flexibility and also affordability. Think about now in our current schools and dormitories and tertiary schools, people paying a lot of money for accommodation. If you don't have to go to school, you just stay at home at your own leisure time and you read your books and do everything online, you don't worry about all these paying school fees and other accommodation fees and other stuff. So I believe distance learning must be deepened. We need to give it a lot of awareness and credence so we can push it. That is what St. Louis is about, and we are looking to make that a reality here in Ghana. It's already there, but we want to expand it. My minister wants to make it more huge, and St. Louis will be the front runner for that project. Yeah.
Good to know. But most of the time when we hear distance learning, it's mostly associated with tertiary level. I don't know if we are doing same at the lower levels all the way to the primary and all, because distance learning, tertiary.
Okay. So I know part of the new initiatives coming up and directed by the President, His Excellency President Nana Akufo-Addo. My minister wants to, he will introduce some sort of virtual high school for schools from the KG to the SHS. So we are looking to do that. You don't have to be for only the tertiary. So that is what we are looking to do.
Well, but quickly, open school. I know about the distance learning, but open school, what really does it entail then?
Open school is, I could say technically is universities or schools without walls online. So people can also be part. So long as you take an exam and you pass, you'll be part of it. So online school, we can put it as digital schools. Yes.
Thank you very much. Yes. I'm indeed grateful. Definitely we'll have to have more interactions on this, because we need a lot of education when it comes to this, because I'm hoping that you're regulating, because there are a lot of schools out there that tells us that they're doing distance learning. You tend to, apply, and then in the end, they give you fake degrees amongst others.
There you go.
So you're regulating that.
Thank you for having me. And I wanted to say this, that before distance learning or anything ICT to become reality, we have to look at 3 critical areas. That is one, we need to have a national policy that governs that space, So that one, we need to work on that. And also connectivity, because if you want to deploy anything of or online solution, you fall on connectivity. So we also want to look at that. And also access to device. If we develop any content, student has to be able to access it on a device. So we need to either come up with a policy for students to be able to bring their own devices in school, or we need to see how we can make availability of tablets for students so they can access the content that is being populated by St. Louis.
And hopefully you're able to regulate their use also by these children, because we don't want them opening up to all
most of
these
will be a preloaded tablets with courses in there with most security parameters on there, so they can go to, for instance, YouTube and other stuff. We need to prevent that, to make sure they stay tuned to what they are supposed to teach. And also, we don't leave the teachers out. We need to give the teachers the requisite training they need, because when it comes to online education, we have three stakeholders. One is the teachers, and we have the students and the parents. None of them should be left out, especially the teachers. They are going to train our kids online, and teaching online versus on ground is different. Online pedagogies are different compared to teaching on ground. So we need to make sure the teachers get the tools to be able to assess and do other things online for our children to assess it. Okay. So we need to train them and do that for them.
We should engage more. Nana, right. We're grateful. That's Nana Jemfi Ijabo, is Director of St. Louis.
Thank you.
Well, we'll stay a while longer on education-related matters because the National School Inspectorate Authority, NASIA, on October 14 published a list of all schools who've been accredited to run the Cambridge and IB curricula in the country. So as part of the communique, the Inspectorate Authority indicated which schools have been licensed to operate. The Association of International Certification Schools, that's the ASICS, Ghana, has described the publication by NASIA as defamatory and designed to harm their members. They've also called on the Inspectorate Authority to render an unqualified apology to the schools. Let's bring in Florence Ejipong. She's the president of the ASICX Executive Council, and Simon Peter Atakato is the communications officer for the ASICS. We're grateful for your time, ladies and gentlemen. First off, NASIA believes the authority of your members have failed to acquire the necessary accreditation to run these international programs in Ghana. How do you then respond exactly to these accusations? I'll start with you, Madam Ejapong.
Well, this is a great misinformation, and it's an indication of the confusion and the lack of knowledge within NASIA, because in that publication, what NASIA sought to do was to equate licensing with accreditation. Now, NASIA has no role in the accreditation of international schools. That is purely the domain of the international regulatory bodies. So to equate the two and then list the schools as not being accredited to run. Many of these schools have been running for decades. They have built up their brand names and they have got excellent reputations. Now, for you to then say these schools are not accredited and then to go on and add that the parents should not patronize such schools, I think that's a red light in terms of somebody who is supposed to be overseeing best practices, high standards in schools, and making sure of the well-being of the children, the staff, all the stakeholders in education. So it was wrong. Even the minister had to then come out and correct this misinformation. And he explained that licensing and accreditation had nothing to do with one another, and that licensing, if you are behind with your payment of license fees, as we are, but deliberately, you are merely delinquent. And the reason why we are delinquent in paying those license fees demanded by NASIA is because the fees are in dispute. The fees are in dispute. We do not, we know that the fees haven't gone through the proper process, regulatory process. They haven't gone through parliamentary procedures, and they have not been approved by the Ministry for Finance. And so we had petitioned the ministers of education, the previous minister, Honorable Matthew Poku Prempe, and the present one. And both ministers were very sympathetic with our case as far as the school fees were concerned. They tried to get NASIA to meet with us and to negotiate a fairer, more equitable and transparent school fee, license fee. But this has never happened. This has never happened.
Well, that's interesting. I'll talk about the impact this announcement has had on your members, for instance. But let me bring in Mr. Simon Peter Atakato as well. This you have mentioned, or I've seen that you're raising concerns about it being defamatory, for instance. Is there a particular action that you're hoping to take as an association on this?
Well, thank you very much, and good afternoon to your viewers. For now, we are open to dialogue, just like the minister indicated about 2 weeks ago in the Daily Graphics editorial. To add to what my president said, I think we need to point out that the laws of Ghana do not back NASIA to charge licensure fees. And in fact, I want to put it on record that the laws are very clear. NASIA does not have the power to license any school in Ghana. NASIA has 3 objects. NASIA is supposed to inspect schools, enforce standards, and register schools. Registration of schools is different from license of schools. And in fact, if they were supposed to license schools, the laws must determine, and the law-making body, which is Parliament, or the Minister of Finance, must come out and to back and to approve the fees that they are charging. They cannot on their own arbitrarily come out with any fees. As we are speaking, between 2018 and now, there's been a huge jump. We used to pay 200 Ghana cedi to register pre-tertiary schools in Ghana, 200 Ghana cedi, and we were paying it under the Ghana Education Service. With the establishment of NASIA and the Education Regulatory Act 1023, they have come, and some of our schools are expected to pay 12,500. And they are now registering schools according to departments. It is totally arbitrary. It is not backed by any statute or any law. And that goes against the laws of the country.
Okay. Well, I know that you're calling for an apology. I was hoping that we would hear. But one concern, one key issue that people have also raised is that how would NASIA be able to enforce these standards like you talked about if they are not able to license and accredit, for instance?
Thank you very much. I think the framers of the law, which is our constitution and the other statutes and enactments, are aware how the various government departments should be funded. We are not averse to payment of fees, but it becomes quite skeptical whilst some schools pay 800 Ghana cedis currently from 200 Ghana to 800 Ghana. ASIC schools, our Association of International Certification Schools, have had a fee increment of 6,125. 6,000, you can just imagine, amidst COVID, that you ask schools to pay 12,500. We are not averse to payment of fees. We are ready to pay fees. If Parliament feels that ASIC's operations should be supported, then the right bill should be laid before Parliament. The NASIA's objects should be restructured. They should be re-empowered. But for now, we can tell you they are clearly going beyond the scope of the authority granted them by the laws.
Mr. Sejapong, let me find out if we are in talks as an association, for instance, with NASIA on this particular situation. I know you're calling for an apology. Has it come yet? And are you in talks with NASIA? And are they forthcoming? Are they willing to budge when it comes to the position that you've taken and they have taken as well?
We haven't had any recent talks with NASIA, but we have been dialoguing with NASIA over the very issue. But the MO of NASIA seems to be that when we meet, we come up with some understanding, some agreements, but within a very short space of time, NASIA has either reneged on these agreements or just totally ignored them. So that is what we have been going through with NASIA for the best part of 18 months. So it's very frustrating for us, and so we have informed the minister that we are not cooperating with NASIA or any demands on fees until the unresolved issue of fees is solved once and for all.
And what has been the response to the minister on this position that you have taken in terms of the communication to him on it?
Well, as I said before, the ministers, both the former minister and the present minister, have always been quite sympathetic to what we have complained about and the insensitivity of such a hike during a pandemic. So we don't have a problem with the ministers. It's rather NASIA's failure to carry out instructions given to it by the ministers.
Okay. Well, but you're calling for an apology from NASIA. Has it come?
We would like that. Of course, no, it hasn't come. We would very much like an apology, because when that publication on the 14th was issued, it caused a lot of consternation amongst our parents who now were wondering what was happening, because they have been sending the children to the school all this time, and now they are informed that the schools are not accredited to run international programs. So we had to execute damage control. And also, that publication on the 14th was the latest in a whole list of aggressive attempts from NASIA to collect the unresolved fees. For example, for all schools, private schools who hadn't paid the unresolved fees, she had issued a directive to all banks in Ghana that they should not transact any business with schools who had not paid and could not issue a licensure certificate. Now, this was not only illegal, but put a lot of schools in very serious financial problems. Most of the banks ignored the directive because NASIA has no legal mandate to direct a bank. But most of the banks had ignored it. Unfortunately, a few banks had complied. We don't know why, but that is what happened and put a lot of our members under in serious financial turmoil.
Overall, what would you say has been the impact of this? Because you talked about some parents being apprehensive and all. On your members, what would you say has been the general impact on this particular announcement from NASIA?
I think we've managed to do enough damage control for them to understand that something is wrong. Because if you look at the kind of schools that were on that list, who have been operating for many decades, now being described as not unaccredited, then obviously there is something wrong there. There's something wrong. And I think most parents realize that. And so after we explained the situation to them, they were fine. They were fine. But that just indicates the lengths and the underhand tactics that NASIA is prepared to go to get unresolved fees that have not been through due process.
Okay. Well, I'll find out finally from you, Mr. Kato, how far are we willing to go on this particular issue, because you've described it as defamatory, and how far are we willing to go on this, you'd say?
Thank you very much. I think we are in the business of training minds. We are producing future leaders who we think will be ready to come and make a change in the global community. We are not interested in litigating issues, but when we are pushed to the wall, then the laws of the land must work. We think we need to open up, just like the minister said, we need to meet the board of NASIA, the Ministry of Education, and come to an amicable solution, because this has had a lot of toll on our schools. If you look at Ghana International School, which was established several years ago with one of the best standards in the whole of the world, not just in Africa, and a type of impact our schools are having on the global community. We have our international schools complementing the good work the GS is doing. So we will be willing that we come to the table and have an amicable solution. And just like my president said, we are also asking that this defamatory statement should be retracted immediately. And we also called equally that we think we need a seasoned educationist, someone who has gone through the ranks, someone who understands how the quality of teaching and learning, what to actually look for, to be at the helms of NASIA, and we don't want to run away from that.
Okay, well, finally, Mrs. Ejapong, we know that you run Alpha Beta, founder and all, but let me find out so that we get it clear. Is it that your members are against the licensing and accreditation that is being embarked on by NASIA, or it is that you want the proper things to be done?
We are not against licensing, as we have said. And as for accreditation, we are all accredited. That is nothing to do with NASIA.
Okay.
And we are happy to pay the license fees as long as they have gone through due process, they are transparent, and they are attached to some kind of fee structure. We have never been given a fee structure. We've been given invoices, but without a fee structure, you cannot really make sense of what is on the invoice.
Okay.
So there's a lot of structures that need to be put in place, but we have never, ever said that we don't want to pay. We know we have to pay. And at the moment, we have been called delinquent because we have not paid the license fees because they are in dispute. But as the minister rightly said, that does not mean that we are not licensed. We are licensed, but we are behind with the payment, deliberately delinquent, because we have so many unresolved issues to do with that, the payment of the licensing fee.
Well, I must say that we've contacted NASIA on this, but we've been unsuccessful today. But as and when we get NASIA, we'll get an appropriate response from them as well. But many thanks, Mrs. Ejapong, for joining us. And also to you, Mr. Peter Kato. Many thanks for your company. Do enjoy the rest of the day. Well, this is the pulse here on the JoyNews channel. Away from education, we'll turn our attention to financial issues and the economy, because in exactly a week, the finance minister will be in Parliament with the government's economic policy and budget statement for the year 2022. One key issue Ghanaians will be keen to see government do is a measure aimed at addressing the high cost of petroleum products. The commodity has seen a 38% increase at the pumps this year alone, and Ghanaians are not taking it lightly at all, raising concerns about the burden it places on all sectors of the economy. So in hashtag Budget 2022 today, as part of our build-up to the budget presentation, we find out what is causing the hikes and whether governments can do something to bring relief to the people. So on your screen now is the breakdown of the average fuel prices all the way from 2015 to 2021. You've seen how it looks like. So from 2015, we've had 2.37 and then 2.64. And then all the way to 2020, we had 4.74. That's how it looks like over the period. Increases, comes down, but steady increase over the period. 2022, it came down a bit from 2019, where it was 4.35. But in 2021, we've seen that it is what 6.72. That's at November. In some cases, even 6.9. It's not just 6.72. In some cases, as of November, at some pumps, you see it at 6.9. So that's the trend on the average fuel and diesel and petrol prices. So that's what it looks like. Now, we focus on 2021 alone. I've given you from 2015 to 2021. Now, let's focus on 2021. From the 1st to the 15th of January for diesel and petrol. So diesel in the light green and petrol in the deep blue. So petrol was 4.86 and diesel also 4.86. Growing up, it's always been a disparity. There's also always a difference. But now it looks like they're all on neck and neck. And then February, we had 4.95 for both diesel and petrol. Then on the 16th to the 28th of February, we've had 5.08 and then 5.1 for diesel and petrol. Then all the way to November now, the 7th of November, this is where we are, 6.75 and 6.75 for diesel and petrol. And like I said, just over the weekend at some pumps, you'll get it at what? 6.9 and 6.8. Let me bring in a policy analyst, Mr. Peter Tekpe, as we build up to the 2022 finance and financial statement presented by the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta. We've been interacting with some drivers also and road users. Their concerns are that it doesn't look like they are able to keep up anymore. But Mr. Tekpe, you've been watching the trends. First off, when it comes to fuel pricing, as the Finance Minister prepares to deliver that address on Monday, are you expecting anything different?
Thank you very much. Well, I am not expecting anything much to change. However, I am hoping that looking at the current circumstance, government will be able to, do something to alleviate the hardship that the pricing has brought, especially because of the impact of petroleum increases on the economy as a whole. It is one thing that when it happens, it affects all aspects of the economy. Everybody is affected, everybody is impacted. And so it is hoped that government will come out with a policy that will help to alleviate the hardship in the medium term or in the short term.
Well, but we've heard the complaints from persons, because I've been looking at the trend from January all the way till now. It appears that by the close of the year, we may hit seven cities. But government has said that they've removed the stabilization fund, for instance. Parliament is yet to approve that also. But do you really think that there's anything really that government can do? Because it's in the hands of these OMCs, isn't it?
Of course, in a regime of deregulation, it's in the hands of the OMCs. However, if you look at the price build-up, government taxes alone contribute to about almost 40% of the total price at the pumps. which means that government has the option to decide on determining the prices at the pumps in one way or the other. Don't forget that when the regulation regime was in place, government was subsidizing, which means government can do something. And that is the reason why I think that in the coming budget, it is hoped that government will look at the current circumstances in which we find ourselves, because government is exporting fuel as well. And if you look at the 2021 budget, where the price was pegged at around $54, $54.75, today is above 80. Government is going to rake in about additional $500 million. And so if we find ourselves in a situation where it has brought hardship, we don't forget that COVID has affected a lot of companies and the economy is not bouncing back. Organizations are not coming up. But supply chain challenges, logistics, cost of materials have increased. And so organizations are struggling in order to meet their costs of materials and also operational expenses. As a result, it is good that government also look at it in such a way that they weigh the options and then reduce the burden on the individuals as well. And that is the reason why government should look at a way of reducing the burden by bringing out a policy that will reduce the costs.
So it looks like you are hopeful that on Monday, when the finance minister presents that budget, something will be announced to alleviate the plight of consumers.
Of course, especially on the taxes, because that is where government has authority. That is where government can do something, especially. Okay. Prices on the world market, there's something you can do about it. But the one that is within your capacity, of course, the price stabilization and the recovery, I mean, the president has asked, the government is saying that in the next 2 months, they want to, it has not even started yet. But looking at the circumstance we find ourselves, I'm hoping that in the budget, government will say because of the challenges that it has brought to Ghanaians with regards to the world price increase in fuel, once we are importing and we have budgeted, we'll make so much, about $800 million revenue from petroleum prices, and we are going to make about $1.2 billion with regards to the current price against what we budgeted for. Government wants to come out with the policy to say that we are scrapping ABCD taxes to be able to reduce the burden on the Ghanaian within this period, so that when it comes back, they can bring it at any time. They have power to do so, and it is easy. I don't even understand why it's taking so much time for Parliament to even approve the one that they have reduced, because it can be done in a day.
Okay. Mr. Tekpe, we'll leave it here. I'm sure as part of our build-up all the way to Monday, we'll be engaging you more when we decide on the next topic for the next build-up. Many thanks for your company. That's Peter Tekpe. He's a policy analyst joining us via Zoom. We've been talking about fuel prices, and it's on all our platforms. You can join the discussion also with #Budget2022. We'll short break, and when we return, we have sports. And this is where we part company on today's edition of The Pulse. We have Let's Talk Entertainment. Shortly is Let's Talk Showbiz coming up shortly. But remember that we have more on myjoyonline.com, from entertainment to business. All that you need to know is the biggest that you need to visit for all news. I am MFR Pau. Many thanks for your company. Enjoy the rest of our programming.